Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Lights on Data show. Very excited to address this topic, the three-part strategy that's building tomorrow's AI. And to do so, we have Kerry Robinson, VP of Conversational AI at Waterfield Tech. Welcome, Kerry.
Thanks, George. Great to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. Now, you have over 20 years of experience in data, AI, customer experience. And I think you put a lot of this gained experience, skills, thought, lessons learned into formulating the strategy. So I want to dive right into it. Can you please tell us a little bit more about it? What are those three parts? And what is really the end goal of that strategy?
Yeah, I think this is something I've learned the hard way. I mean, I got into AI so we're nearly 4 decades into this. And of course, it's changed a lot in that time. And so I think inadvertently, I arrived at a way of dealing with that constant change and a technology that had the same name but got redefined multiple different times. And so I break it down into Discover, Illuminate, and Pioneer, with Discover being eyes open, ears open, listening and learning, trying to cultivate lots of sources of information, being smart about your social media feeds, signing up to the right newsletters and podcasts and things like that. And so you've got a lot of inputs. I think that's where the Discover comes.
Yeah.
But I think one of the challenges we can all fall into with this sort of fire hose of information that's available, and that's only gone 10x as a result of the huge explosion with Gen AI, is what does it all mean? And I think that's for me where the kind of the Illuminate idea comes in. So constantly, as you're getting these inputs, these ideas from other people, other data points, is integrate that into your meaning, your mindset, your kind of outlook on the world. What does it mean to you? And you do it right there and then. And I think that's a good practice just in general, because it means you're not just listening to information, you're understanding its relevance and attaching it to your own tree of knowledge. But it also means you can communicate it. You've got a structure on that, so you can start having conversations with people and practicing out those ideas. And I find that there's one thing to hear it, there is another thing to see what that means to you and how it fits into your worldview. But as soon as you start trying to articulate it in a conversation like this, but even better, turn it into an email or to a video or a piece of content, that's what really forces you to make sure you've understood the core concepts. And then we get to Pioneer, which is like, all right, so what does this mean? What are you going to do differently? And here what I found is that, especially in AI, and especially now in Gen AI, even the most senior leaders in this field, I think, need to get their hands dirty. You've got to touch and feel and use and struggle with this technology in the context of your kind of worldview and see what really works and make up your own mind. Because otherwise you've got, on one hand, you've got Gary Marcus telling you this is all rubbish and it's all fake and it's the end of the world. And the other hand, you've got Elon Musk solving the whole world's problems by building an AI based on truth. And the reality for you is going to be somewhere between those extremes. And you can only figure that out by pioneering, by getting involved, by showing yourself and then your team what's possible. And I feel that throughout my career, once you've gone through that process of discovering kind of new ideas, new information, integrating that into your worldview, and then showing what might be possible, actually bring it to life with a real demo, has been a superpower. And thank goodness Gen AI can code, because my coding skills were never that good. But now Gen AI picks up the pieces. But anyway, that was a lot, but that's how I look at the world.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and to the last point, yeah, definitely to have it from your point of view, based on your needs, your context, either at an individual level or the business level. And Kerry, what would be the end goal then on following these three steps?
We can be quite philosophical here, and really it's pursuit of the truth. It's like, what's really going on in a way that's meaningful to me, my team, and my business, and then showing what's possible. Okay, now we know what's going on. Now we know what it means to me, my team, my business. And here's something you can actually do with it. And I remember, like, in the very early of generative AI, the first thing I did is I write a weekly email teaching robots to talk on AI. And I took all of those emails and I put it into a RAG system, a retrieval augmented generation system. It's one of the early ways of doing that using LangChain. And I took all my emails and quickly created this little chatbot that you could chat to about everything I've ever written. And it was awesome because suddenly that opened so many possibilities. Like, it ended up on our website as a marketing tool. I used it to help me understand what I hadn't written about and remind me about concepts that I could bring to bear on the net. And of course, we started thinking, wow, this could be useful for our clients, because we're in contact center and people call up contact centers and speak to agents and they want answers, and often the agents don't have those answers, but a chatbot with
Right.
access to all of the business information might be able to help. So I think that's what's happened. You kind of understand what's possible, integrate it with your worldview, make it relevant to your team, your business, your company, yourself, and then show yourself and your team what's possible. And I think everything else just follows.
So for the first part on discover, do you have any particular sources or channels that you rely on? How do you find new information and making sure that's reliable, relevant?
I like to cultivate a diverse feed. So like I said, I subscribe to Gary Marcus's emails and I follow him on Twitter, even though I think most of what he says nowadays is complete rubbish. He was much better 10 years ago. And then I like Andrew Ng, for example. He has a weekly email, The Batch, and a great source of information and training on his website, deeplearning.ai. And then you've got to follow the Sam Altmans and the Elon Musk of the world.
Right.
And I like one of my favorite AI podcasts is This Day in AI, a couple of Australian guys. And that works great because I wake up on a Friday morning, go for a run, I can listen to the latest news in AI. So yeah, I think a diversity of views, and from lighthearted and fun through to really quite deep and technical, is the way I like to do it. But then something else, and this is I think where AI comes in, that's too much. Sorry, no, that's okay. But then every one of those shows references another couple of podcasts and another couple of people you should follow and another few papers you should look at. And that's where I think, especially ourselves in the field, but I think more generally, we all need to build, I call it our AI exoskeleton. We need to get, pull together the right tools and make it an instinct to use them. And you don't have to search too far and wide here. The ChatGPT app is brilliant, and always have a ChatGPT window open. Like for this show, how do I prepare for this show? I scrape the transcript of 2 or 3 shows, I put it into ChatGPT, asked for a summary, got it to give me a feel for what's the structure of the discussion. I did a talk a couple of weeks ago in Denver, Colorado about the AI First Contact Center, grabbed the transcript off YouTube, got it to summarize that. There's a couple of things that I like to talk about, so I threw those in. And I was like, summarize all this. And nice. The thing is, you have to have a conversation with the AI, because it's a good sparring partner, but it's not a good replacement for you. And so I do that a lot. So I spent half an hour doing that this morning. I had our discussion, and that was cool. And it reminded me of some things that I've said and talked about that perhaps I'd forgotten and would have mentioned if the AI hadn't reminded me. And the other thing is like voice mode. So if I'm like making dinner or just out for a walk, I'll just have my AirPod in and I will shoot the breeze with ChatGPT about all sorts of different subjects, from religion to politics to the threat of evil AI and everything in between.
So see, this makes me think, it's fascinating how you walking me through your process, and thank you for sharing that. And I feel like somebody with your experience and the amount of years that you have behind before you had access to this technology, I think you can really parse the answers that are being given back by the AI and think maybe that's not right. What do you think about the new generations that maybe don't have that critical thinking as developed as yours? Do you see this still helping, or maybe at times leading them on the wrong path?
A really good question. And I think one of the tricks with getting a hang of AI is to interact with it on a topic now and have a chat about a topic now, because you'll start to realize where it makes mistakes, what hallucinations look like, and how to get the most out of it. So I talk to it a lot about AI, which is great because I know quite a lot about AI. And so when it says things or misses things, I can point it out. Great book. If anyone is looking for a recommendation, Max Tegmark's Life 3.0, which is talking about Life 1.0, so essentially biological organisms that could only improve through evolution. And then life 2.0, which is like us. So we can improve our hardware through evolution, but our software in our brains, we can improve through learning and interaction and listening to LightsOnData. But life 3.0, really technology-based intelligence, can change its hardware and its software. We can change the algorithms, we can change the structure of the neural networks that we're building, we can change the hardware they run on, and we can change the software. And ultimately, it will probably be able to change its own hardware and its own software. So that's life 3.0, as he puts it. But I mention it because I'd read the book, but I wanted to share a summary with my chairman and my boss. And so I got an AI summary, and it gives this beautiful summary, except it only described life 1.0 and life 2.0, and it completely left out life 3.0, even though that was the title of the book. I think that's one of the tricks is use AI in a subject area that you know about, and then you'll more easily spot the errors and get a feel for it. The other thing I think is just like, and it comes back to the Discover, Illuminate, Pioneer, like what's really going on? What is this thing? And there's a very kind of simple, practical way of looking at it, and there's a much more kind of interesting sort of philosophical way to look at it. I think they're both helpful. Like, it's autocomplete. It's a language model. It learned to predict the next most likely word. And if you go back to something like GPT-3, you could say, once upon a time, and it would carry on, there was a little girl, and tell you a story. And that was awesome at the time, but not very useful. And then what the difference between GPT-3 and ChatGPT 3.5, they had an army of human reviewers ask it questions and then rate the answers, and in some cases correct the answers. So what we did is we took a really accurate model of all language ever on the internet, and then we biased it, intentionally biased it such that it would give satisfying answers to human reviewers. And that made it useful. But it also meant that we'd literally whipped it into submission until it always gave us answers that humans were happy with. It was there to serve. And so if you ask it a question that it doesn't have the right or good knowledge to answer, it will still try to answer it. And that's the source of most hallucinations, is you're just asking it a question it's not capable of answering. And that's why, that's where a lot of the work to make modern generative AI useful comes from, is like, how do we make sure that the model's got the right information to be able to produce the right answer? Because we learned very early on when we were kind of trying to figure out, like, again, discover, what is this? Illuminate, come up with a mental model. We realized very early that this AI had capabilities way beyond, we'd had speech recognition before and simple versions of natural language understanding. But when we first got working with these models, we started to realize that they could reason, they could actually consider what a set of instructions meant. It could translate. So it could translate from natural language text to a query for a REST backend, and it could translate from the JSON that it got back into a natural language sort of summary of an order on an online retail platform. And it could summarize. So it could take long form content and it could cut it down. So we've got reason, translate, summarize. So that's what it's capable of doing.
Right.
It does have general knowledge inside it because it picked it up along the way, but that's the most unreliable part of the generative models we have. I think the most reliable part is reasoning, translation, and summarization. And so if you give the model something to reason over, something that you need it to translate, something you need to summarize, it's extremely good at it. But if you're just relying on the kind of the knowledge that got inadvertently left in the model, that's where things fall apart. And you'll notice, so I mentioned Gary Marcus, and he's always got these tweets and emails complaining about how bad generative AI is. And it's usually when he's asked it a general knowledge question.
Love it.
Had he provided some input and said, hey, look, here's a list of all the states in the US, and then said, how many states in the US have names beginning with J? I think that's one he gave. It would have answered it perfectly because you gave it information. Same as a human. If you don't give a human the information they need to pass an exam or to handle a customer service inquiry, they're not going to do a very good job of it. But if you give them that information, let them have a bit of practice, watch carefully how they do it and correct them if they make mistakes, then the AI can do it great, just like humans can.
Love it. Yeah, in a way, we need to have that AI literacy as well and understand, yes, what are the benefits, potential limitations as well. So we can use it with all that in mind. It brings me back to the first days of the internet and email, and we were learning as we went along, right? And now we know to avoid that email from the Nigerian prince, but maybe we didn't know in the first few years, or what reliable sources look like from the look and feel and the content that they provide. And right now, if we do see a lot of, I don't know, animated GIFs and things like that, it's maybe a bit fishy to us. And yeah, I think we also need to learn on those limitations and when to spot something that's not quite right that the AI is providing us with.
Yeah. And just to build on that, I would say something that I think a lot of people are not getting right about AI is they're treating it as just another tool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's like a database, or it's like this, or it's like this. And I think that's entirely wrong. And I didn't believe that to start with, because I've had many kind of false horizons of AI. But when we really got closely working with these models and see what they're capable of and how quickly they're evolving, I think a much better metaphor for the Gen AI we have today is it's a real form of intelligence. The closest knowledge we have is humans. And that's not to say it's the same or to say anything about the future and what it might mean to have super intelligent machines, or I think that's quite likely a scenario. What it means is that in the same way as we harness humans by understanding humans and having empathy for the job we're asking them to do, and making sure we give them the right tools and support and coaching, and not expecting them to get it right every time, but when we get things wrong, it's a learning experience. It's that I think is the better mindset, the better way of thinking about AI. And I think so many organizations aren't looking at it that way. But I think partly because my focus has been contact center and customer service, which is largely delivered by humans. And now we can see that AI can largely do everything they do. It's helped us see more quickly, I think, that metaphor as AI as faster, better, cheaper intelligence, but not the same as human intelligence.
So hands-on experimentation is definitely crucial for understanding AI's potential, and you talked about that. Do you have a particular approach to experimenting with AI technologies, or you just take it all in? I don't know, take it as you go.
Yeah, like my favorite is, so just use the models all the time, whether you prefer OpenAI or Anthropic, have the
Yeah.
app on your phone and use it all the time. And for everything else, I just love Colab notebooks. So Google Colab, it's free. Sometimes it's worth paying for $10 a month or whatever it is to get better
Mm-hmm.
access. But I love those because I don't have to use a DevOps team to set up an environment. I don't need to ask anyone's permission. No one else needs to see my code. And so many AI projects nowadays, there'll be a Colab notebook that they'll give you to get started, and you can just take a copy of that, put in your API keys, and get going. And so I'll start with the example that originally I got from LangChain, which showed me how to build that chatbot that read all my
Mm-hmm.
emails and impersonated me. And then as I want to improve it, I would just take bits of the code and put it into ChatGPT and say, I want it to do this. And it would write the code. I wouldn't even read it. I'd paste it into the notebook. I'd run it. If it runs, great. We've taken a step forward. And if it does, just take the error message and kind of post it back into ChatGPT. So that's my work. And I've always been a bit of a hacker, like not scared to break things. And I think with the Colab notebook and ChatGPT, you can get a long way in this world nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly in terms of that kind of that pioneering, showing what's possible. But then you need a team of good engineers like we have to turn that into something that can run
Yeah.
scalably and securely and all those things.
Yeah. So as AI continues to evolve rapidly, I'm sure you're letting your imagination wander at times. Is there something that you find really exciting as a potential in the future that what AI can bring to us?
Oh yeah. And this is the cool thing, right? We get to play with cool technology every day. But also it's forcing us to ask fundamental questions about, I think, about software, business, humanity, consciousness. So yeah, it depends how far we want to go. Just stop me if this starts getting too esoteric. I think one of the massively underappreciated, but I think highly likely outcomes of what we've got here is low code, graphical interfaces. I think they're going. Why do they get created? Because normal human beings, business executives, operations people, they don't know how to code. And so you need to do the coding for them and then expose it through an interface that they can easily interact with. And up until now, that's meant a graphical user interface. But now we can just have a chat bot and a chat window.
Hmm.
And rather than having to drag and drop and scripts and their way to an experience in a low-code platform, whether that is data analysis or in our case, building contact center automation, I think we're not very far away. I'm literally doing it in my Colab notebooks with ChatGPT. We're not very far away from saying, I want this, and your contact center platform will make the configurations to do that. Or
Right.
I want to do this analysis or tell me this about the data, and your business analytics platform will do that. In fact, like already, GPT 4.0 is really good at this. Like I said, I was doing a conference presentation a couple of weeks ago. It was on the Wednesday. On the Monday, GPT 4.0 launched. And I was like, I need to update my presentation. I was literally just copying and pasting graphs from my presentation in. And here's the latest updates from OpenAI. Update this graph to show the continued reduction in the cost of inference. And it did it. It didn't quite get it right. I had to do a little bit of visual work on it. That kind of thing, you can just see it at your fingertips
Yeah.
in ChatGPT, in those Colab notebooks. So I think low-code interfaces are going away. We will still use visuals. Human beings use visuals, but I think there'll be a lot of less dragging and dropping and scripting, a lot more chatting and interacting with information.
Yeah. Do you have any advice on how individuals and organizations can prepare to leverage these advancements effectively?
Working on it, but I can share you with kind of, so I've probably got to the Illuminate stage yet. So I think you need to look at really what is the core of the business. What's the core thing you're doing? And like most businesses involve leveraging a combination of human intelligence and software to do something useful. So in contact centers, they use thousands of human individuals to answer calls, and they use software to make sure the right calls get to the right people and that they've got the information they need to answer the calls. And we help those businesses pick the right software, configure it, and in some cases train the agents.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to do that at the moment, we help them pick software products, and then we help them integrate those software products, and then we help them operate and support those software products. But like pretty much all of that is just at the shores of the rising tide of AI. But what are we really doing? We're solving for bugs in companies, right? So no one calls a contact center because they want to have a chat with an agent. They call because something went wrong. And so that's what I'm encouraging my team to do, my business to do, and our clients to do, is think, okay, so you're running a contact center. What were you really doing? You're solving issues that it wasn't economically or technically viable to solve another way.
Mm-hmm.
A process went wrong, or there's a specific corner case that needs fixing and it wasn't worth putting a button on the GUI to solve for that. So, and once you get to the core of what you're doing, you need to understand, like, is that something that AI is ready to replace? And like, when it comes to like software products, like, why do we have software products? Software is expensive to write. So you have to aggregate demand so that lots of customers can afford to pay a small amount of money for an incredibly expensive endeavor of building good software. But AI is getting better at creating software. I think first goes the low code, but then I think there's a question about like business to business software. Like, is that dynamic of aggregating demand from business software users to build a large expensive product? Is that really relevant when AI can build the product you want, and maybe AI can integrate the various different things that you need? So like, it's early days, but I think there's this great analogy that I've heard, which is, if you imagine sort of the world we occupy, kind of the human experience is like a landscape, and right at the bottom was we were working with tools and working on the land, but then technology rose to handle that. We had tractors and things like that, and then the next thing was handling and transferring information, and then the kind of the tide rose, and then computers and the internet became good at that. And now the AI is starting to get good at the things that we do with those networks, like code and analyze data. And so the sea continues to rise. And our job as individuals, humans in the world, but also as business leaders, is to look up the hill. Like, what's left up there that AI can't do now and won't be doing next, that is really core to humanity, core to our business. So at Waterfield, that is what really is the purpose of a contact center. How can we enable human and artificial intelligence to solve for bugs in a business that result from corner cases and things like that? So, like, just try to look at your own life, your own business from as kind of philosophical lens as that, and then look up that hill and walk up it as fast as you can, because the AI is coming up behind you.
As you're describing the call center scenarios, imagining a world in future where maybe we don't even need that human interface at all. Maybe we have my AI, my digital twin, just interface with the company's AI, maybe through the Waterfield technology, and make it all happen without having to have a low-code, no-code, even UI at all in place.
I love where you're going, and that is something that actually was one of the punchlines of my conference presentations a couple of weeks ago, which is that OpenAI, with their GPT-4o announcement, they've got a demo on their website with a personal AI talking to a corporate AI. And the guy says to personal AI, can you just contact Acme Telco, because they sent me the iPhone, it's broken. And so it calls Acme Telco, and you've got one AI talking to another AI about this broken iPhone, and one AI puts the other AI on hold and chats to its user and says, can I share your email address? Have you got the returns thing? Yes, it's come through. And they go back, yeah, we've got that all sorted. Thank you very much. And like a couple of really interesting things here. Firstly, if you're dealing with contact from consumers, they don't like contacting you. You've still got more contact that you can handle, but customers don't like contacting you. What if it's so easy to contact you? They will contact you for that refund they couldn't be bothered, that squashed banana that arrived with your groceries that you couldn't be bothered to deal with, to chase that refund, to ask for that discount, to book 15 hotel rooms and then pick the one they can get for the best price the day before that they actually go on vacation. So there's going to be huge amounts more contact and demand on organizations. And I think as a result of that, they are going to have to expose more AI to speak to the personal AI. And then I think there's this really fascinating question about, so does that become the new API? Is AI talking to AI in natural language or even voice? Is that the new API? Or will we still need APIs? Because there's a reason that humans use natural language and not code to talk. Because code's limited in its expressiveness. It's precise, but it's limited. Whereas natural language is unlimited. And if you want to be able to solve an unlimited number of problems for your customers, then APIs that are using natural language could be the way.
Thank you. Kerry, thank you so much for being on the LightsOnData show, putting the lights on the three-part strategy that's building tomorrow's AI. Discover, illuminate, pioneer. And I do encourage everybody to follow you on LinkedIn and check out Waterfield Tech as well.
Thanks, George. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.